All right, let's go to the Chargers. Coming off of a very good year, but a disappointing playoff run here. Disappointing playoff game against the Houston Texans. Chargers, Jim Harbaugh's first year. A lot of our offseason debates last year were like, hey, they had to move on from some contracts. They had to move on from receivers. Do we build up the offensive line or the receiving core? At pick number 5, they went with Joe Alt at tackle. Got Lad McConkey on the turn. I think they played that game perfectly. But as you watch the Chargers this year, I think the big question mark was, okay, we neglected receiver a little bit last year. Hit on McConkey. Got to go back there and have some more pass catchers, both at tight end and at receiver, to complement McConkey and give Herbert a few more weapons outside.
Yeah, I think that's the offseason for them. It's just getting weaponry. And not just a receiver, though that's the most obvious and biggest weakness. The running back as well. I mean, JK Dobbins moved the needle for them this season when he was out there, when he's not. Maybe you could bring him back on the cheap because that injury profile, I would imagine, limits the kind of contract anybody's going to give him. But even then, I don't know that you can rely on him being healthy. So I would maybe bring back J.K. Dobbins, but also still be looking to draft somebody in a good running back draft. Tight end, you could still invest in. Will Disley's fine, but he's not great. So I would literally spend the offseason just acquiring receivers, tight ends, and running backs for this offense, and let's really go somewhere.
I am with you, man. I think the Chargers, and we'll talk about the Broncos in a minute, are they the most common tight end pick for the first round, the Colson Loveland and Tyler Warren pick? I think they're in there, right? As far as potential first round tight end, I think first round receiver should be in play here. Luther Burden, maybe for the Chargers, but I'd love to see high draft picks on pass catchers here for the Chargers.
Yeah, I like Burden a lot. Yeah, the most common Chargers pick, according to the PFF mock draft sim, is Colson Loveland, the tight end from Michigan.
They also have a lot of cap space at the moment, normal haul of draft picks. So there's a lot of good potential here for the Chargers. They have to Khalil Mack's a free agent, Joey Bosa potentially getting cut. So I think it's also defensive line offseason. Puna Ford as a free agent, would love to see them bring him back. But those are a couple high value positions that need to be attacked this offseason: pass catcher and then the defensive line.
I think they're players in that defensive line free agent group as well, right? Whether it's Josh Sweat, more likely, I think, or more intense of a need is the interior. Again, they're a team that had Puna Ford last year, made a big difference. They should try and bring him back. And if not, they're going to need a Puna Ford replacement in addition to just any impact player on the defensive line. Like right now, it's Joey Bosa, who has been hurt a lot in the last few years and not very much else. Tuli Tuipulotu as well, but like they need reinforcements on that defensive line, and they have the cash to spend. And I think the free agent defensive line group is a lot stronger than the free agent pass catcher group and running back group. So I think they should try and attack defensive line in free agency, bring back Puna Ford. Maybe they're a team to try and get Milton Williams or Odigizua or Onwuzurike. Maybe they're a team in the Josh Sweat sweepstakes, but hit that in free agency with the cap space they have, and then just rely on the draft for the skill position players that you're going to need.
What if we talk a lot about the deep defensive line draft. Why the Chargers could be in that market as well, given where they're drafting defensive line, and then maybe get the receivers in the second and third. As much as I would love to see a Luther Burden, maybe that second wave of receiver is the way to go in the draft, and they draft one of those defensive linemen high. Again, if James Pierce falls and some of those guys that I think have top 10 potential end up going a little bit lower than expected, I think the Chargers could absolutely be in that market as well.
Definitely, but it's just there's nobody in terms of the skill position players where you want to really throw the money in free agency. So in terms of allocation of resources, like I think you would want to use the cash to get the defensive linemen and then use the draft picks to get the guys that simply aren't available in free agency.
Let me give you one fit that might not happen, but I know you watched a lot of Jalen Walker from Georgia the other day, and his skill set of being able to track down quarterbacks. Like he could rush the passer, played off ball linebacker, unbelievable in a spy role for Georgia. I mentioned that his highlight reel play that everybody's going to show is him tracking down Arch Manning on a scramble against Texas. I'm not saying you draft a guy just to beat Patrick Mahomes, but the type of player that can keep the quarterback in the pocket, play a little spy, make sure you don't get that back-breaking scramble against you, and create some pressure. Jalen Walker feels like a really good fit for this division where the goal is obviously knock off the Chiefs.
Yeah, and he's also a genuinely intriguing. He kind of is a hybrid player. Like he's not just a guy who's, like he's playing two different positions and he's playing both of them pretty well. And okay, when you watch the sort of negatives, like all of the mental lapses are at off the ball linebacker, but the guy's barely played football, period, let alone, one of these positions long term. So it kind of makes sense that there's some mental screw ups there. But like you could deploy him as a genuine hybrid in the NFL as well, as opposed to is he an edge rusher? Is he a linebacker? Like we've been kind of tossing around comps or guys that have played that sort of thing in the past. Denver did it for a while with Von Miller, right? Where he was like a 2-down Sam linebacker who then became an edge rusher. The Patriots with Dante Hightower. You mentioned the Patriots with Jamie Collins. There are teams that have done this previously, and I think the NFL now is possibly skewing in a direction where those guys would make more sense than they have in the past. The Flores tree with guys like Van Ginkel and Dallas Turner, like it's a bit different, but this defense I was about to say San Diego, in Los Angeles with the Chargers, like they could potentially deploy him as a legitimate hybrid player as opposed to just defensive line reinforcements or, a situational guy. Like he could stay as that kind of dual threat weapon.
Kelly over here my wife, purposely always calls them the San Diego Chargers. And I say, you got to stop doing that because I'll misspeak on the podcast. So she keeps messing with me. She only calls them San Diego. So
nice.
Glad you fell first. There are other needs for the Chargers. I mean, I think they're in prime spot, whether it is on the D line or maybe the way the receivers fall in the first round to get a valuable player there. The secondary also, Asante Samuel Jr. hits free agency and fairly young as well. Christian Fulton. Elijah Molden got hurt after they got him pretty cheap last year. I would try to get him back as a starting safety, but cornerback is also a need. And so the Chargers could be in that market as well, where I think mid-first and into the second round is pretty good cornerback value. So there is a lot of work to do for the Chargers. They have the resources, and it's going to be about figuring out how to properly deploy that. I like your idea, though, of spend on the defensive line, and then we could maybe draft those pass catchers in corners that we need and fill out the roster that way.
Yeah, I mean, so guys that I would love to see for them, I think the Colson Loveland pick does make a lot of sense in the first round at tight end. Luther Burden, I would really like to see in that offense as well. I think that guy's got some amazing skills as a receiver. Like his comps are interesting because you can kind of see them, but I think he's a little bit different to those. Like I've seen him comp to what's his name? The Kadarius Toney. I've seen him comp to Kadarius Toney. He sort of reminded me a little bit of like a bigger version of Zay Flowers, like just that insane quick twitch, short area, a lot of gimmicky type stuff. But I think his like real wide receiver reps are certainly more clean than Kadarius Toney's. Yeah. I think he has potentially more outside versatility than Zay Flowers does as well because of the size. Like he's got some really intriguing tape. Like there's projection involved, but I like him a lot. But he'd be interesting there. As running back, Travion Henderson sort of feels like what JK Dobbins was when he was healthy. If you could get that player in this offense, like that home run hitter who can find a crease and boom, go the distance. Travion Henderson in the second or the third round would be pretty interesting.
Trying to find my Travion notes. I was kind of surprised at Travion's tape after watching him just generally throughout the season, whatever. He's just really dependable and gets what's there, and then also can hit the home runs. I think that could be a really nice fit. I think that's a good shout for the Chargers. So I think there's a lot of work to do here, Sam, but I think, again, they've got the resources to fill those pieces. And I think we've given a few options here as far as pass catchers, defensive line, running back. The one we haven't talked about is corner, and I wouldn't hate if they were in the cornerback market and, got one of those first round injured corners as well.
First round injured.
We've given them a lot of first rounders here, the Chargers. Are they fixed?
Yeah.
Great.
Thanks for watching all the way to the end of our video.
For more great content, click here to subscribe and here to watch another video. We'll see you again soon.